Hi everyone, welcome to my Flosstube channel. This is Sandy. Sandy B Stitcher is my channel name. Welcome back to all my subscribers and welcome to anyone who is stopping by as a new person. If you like what you see, I hope that you will consider subscribing. I'm in a different spot today. This is my stitchy chair. And I thought I'd try this. Don't have much space here to put my stuff around me, but I thought we'd try it out and see how this works. Hope everybody's doing well. I have some notes here somewhere, and gonna try to stay on task here and not get too carried away. I have some WIPs to show you. I'm trying something new. Oh, look, Patches is coming to say hi. Patches, you want to look in the camera here and say hi to everybody? Do you? You want to come over here and say hi? This is my scaredy cat. She is afraid of her own shadow. She was abused, and she's a tortoiseshell, and she is the sweetest little thing you ever saw in your life, but she's very easily startled and scared, and so I don't know. She saw a chance to sit on Mommy's lap, so here she is. So we'll try to go with it here. So back to where my notes are. Okay, now I'm kind of discombobulated. All right, we'll do the best we can while you look at Patches. We've still been getting a terrible amount of rain. There has been so much rain here that Lake Erie has poured over where it's supposed to be. There's a lot of beaches along northern Ohio that are no longer there. They are totally covered with water. I live outside of a small resort town, which in summertime, their basic thing is small cabins and fishing and swimming and stuff. And all the docks, I drove through town the other day, all the docks are underwater. What you would walk on to go out to your boat, they're all underwater. There's a restaurant up there that sits fairly close to the water, and part of the parking lot is covered in water. Their wall there and everything, it's all overflowed the banks there. That's the Vermilion River that goes out into the lake there. So it's bad. It's really bad. The farmers around here said that a lot of the crops are rotting in the field. What they did get into the ground, it's rotting in the fields because the fields are covered in water. This is bad, not only here but all over the country. In the places that have gotten all the rain, I don't know. Today we have sunshine, but it's like we'll get one day of sunshine and then 3 or 4 days of rain. And so it's been going like this since spring. We've never really had a decent spring. So if it's like this where you live, I feel bad for you. If you're having really nice weather, I'm glad for you. And that's all I'm going to say about that. We have a family reunion coming up, and my daughter's having a graduation party for my 2 granddaughters, one from college and one from high school, a week from Saturday, and the reunion's the next day, and I'm hoping and praying that we're going to have decent weather. Okay, who's got poison ivy? I sure do. With all this rain, everything just grew like crazy, and especially the poison ivy. And when I've gone out and tried to weed whack and stuff, I have poison ivy all over my ankles and my lower legs and my feet. And I've even got poison ivy on my thumb on this hand here. I don't ask me how I got it up on my hand. Who knows? Um, I have a cute little story to tell you before we get into everything. And I was sitting here one day and I heard this, it was almost like a knocking sound. And I was like, what the heck is that? And then Bob came up here and he said, what's that noise? And I said, I don't know. So we started investigating and we narrowed it down to our downstairs bathroom and coming from like one inside wall. Couldn't figure it out. It stopped. So, oh well, we don't know what it was. So maybe it was a bird on the outside hitting the aluminum siding, because the wall that we were hearing that sound outside, since this is a split level, that's an outside wall up there, and maybe, you know, it was banging on the siding. So later on in the evening, I started hearing it again, and I'm like, okay, I've got to figure this one out. So I went back into the bathroom and I narrowed it down that it was coming from a certain section of that wall. And we have our lights that are in there are like wall sconces. They are wired into the wall there. And I tapped around different places and I finally decided it had to be coming from right by that light. So I'm looking at the light really closely and it doesn't fit up flush with the wall, because when my husband put those up there, he was replacing some old ones, and these, he couldn't get them flush with the wall. So they were out just a little tiny bit. I saw this little nose sticking out from the light, from the edge of the light. And it was moving, and every time it moved, that was when I heard that noise. So I thought, oh my goodness, there's a mouse in there. So I called Bob up. I got a round container, and then I called him up and I said, there's a mouse behind that light. And I says, that is going to drive us insane unless we take that out and get it out of there. So we started unscrew. It has two little screws on either side that you unscrew. So whoops, patches, don't push the camera out of the way. So we unscrewed it, and I had a hold of the light and I pulled it away from the wall. And you can't get it away from the wall very far because it's wired in there and the wires are very, very short. And I'm looking around behind it and I couldn't see anything. And I said, I don't see it. It must have gone back up into the wall. And Bob says, oh, I see its tail. And he points and it's hanging from the light. And I thought, oh, it's in the back of the light. So I very carefully had him hand me the container that I had. I tipped it over onto the container and went like this. And the little mouse dropped down into the container. And I had kind of a tall container, so it wasn't going to be able to get back out of there. And so then I had him hold the light while I went and threw it away outside. And it was dark by this time, so I just took it out in around a bush and I dumped it out there. It was just a teeny, though, maybe about this long, not including its tail. It wasn't very big. And so then I came back in and we put the light back up and got it hooked back up in there. But that was so funny. We know we have mice that come in with 3 cats in this house, but they get into the ceiling, and I'm not sure how they get in or where they get in, but they get in and they run around in the ceiling and stuff, especially over the ceiling over the family room. Well, you can hear them in there all the time. Don't really hear them in other parts of the house. But this one had gotten up there and in that light, and he was trying to get out, and he was scratching and banging, and because the light, I don't know if he was actually moving the light or not, I don't know. Anyways, that's the mouse story. So, what else do I have to tell you? Well, Bob has taken a couple of good falls. We were out there the other day, and we have these vines we have a lot of greenery, a lot of trees and everything. And there's these vines that grow up and around in the trees and stuff. And he had cut off some of the lower stuff. Well, what it did was everything that was the vines that were up there that he cut the lower stuff, it all died. So there's all this dead stuff hanging in the tree. So I said, let's try to get that down out of there. So we were out there and we were pulling on these vines, and you know, they're wrapped around and around and around the branches and in this tree and that tree, and we were pulling on them. Well, he took a couple of backward flops on his butt, and then he was pulling really hard on this other one, and I was pulling, and instead of planting his feet and pulling and then stepping back and planting his feet, he was trying to step back and pull at the same time. He went down and he hit his head and he hurt his neck again. So that took care of our vine pulling for that day. And he was just complaining his neck was hurting really bad. So I gave him a leave and he rested then for the rest of the day. Next day his neck felt better. Then 2 days later he goes and he said he was going to go out and work down what we call the bottoms, which is down at the bottom of the hill. If you saw my property tour video, it's down in where the old historical building is. And said he was going down there to weed whack. And I just had a bad feeling that day, so I said, all right, well, I'll come check on you after a bit. So I went once and I walked down to the top of where the stairs start to go down. And I looked, and through the branches and everything, I could see him down there. And he was fooling around with his four-wheeler and trying to pull these. He's got these big pole things that are for his range down there, and he was trying to pull some of those and move them around. So I yelled down. I said, I'm checking on you. Are you okay? He said, yeah, I'm fine. So I said, all right, I'm going back up. So I went back up. I waited some, and then I thought, well, you know, I better go check on him again. So I went back down. I got to where the top of the steps were, and I stopped, and I was just standing up there and watching, and he was pulling those pole things again. And then I saw him unhook one, and he drove around, and then it looked like he was going to start backing up. Well, all of a sudden, the four-wheeler shot backwards and up the side of the hill. He went flying off the side of the four-wheeler, and I was like, oh my God, it's going to fall on him. And so I was like, you have no idea. I went racing down those stairs. It's all muddy down there. Ruined my shoes that I had on. Tearing through the weeds, because it's all growing up. Because of all the rain and everything, you can't keep it up. Running through these weeds down there, trying to get over to where he is. He's laying there, and I'm looking in the four-wheeler. It's like this, and one of the right front wheel was about a foot off the ground, and I'm terrified that thing is just going to tip. Now, it is really wide, but I was terrified it was going to tip, and so I ran over there, and he's yelling, I'm okay, and I says, yeah, but I'm afraid this thing's going to fall on you. He goes, no, it'll be okay. So then he was having trouble getting up, and he's laying in the mud, and so he says, well, try to push on the four-wheeler while I try to hold on to it to get leverage to get up. So I'm pushing back on it, and he's holding on to it, the back of it, to try to pull himself up. He did not hurt himself. I think he had some bumps and bruises and stuff, but he did not seriously hurt himself. He just scared the living bejesus out of me. So, anyways, I tell you. So, I asked him, I says, what were you doing? He says, sometimes if you hit a bump, the throttle will just makes your hand jerk on it, and it goes too fast. And he said, that's what happened. He says, I couldn't get my head turned around to see where I was going. And I thought, boy, that's kind of reminiscent of the day on the hill with the tractor. But he's okay, and all's well that ends well. So that's the excitement that we've had around here. And I was, last time after my video again, I was just kind of not feeling my stitching a lot, and I was stitching on Mini Mount Cabin Home for a couple of days, and then I came up with an idea to try to re-spark my Stitchy Bug. And I want to just put a warning out there. My tablet, for some reason, is counting down like it's gonna shut off or stop recording. And if that happens, I'll have to start a new recording. So we'll see what happens here. I don't know why it looks the way it does, but we're gonna see. But anyways, I came up with an idea of doing a WIP a day. I have 23 WIPs. It would take, stop biting me. It would take me 23 days to go through the whole rotation. And I'm making a note of each project, kind of how big it is, where I'm at with it, and then I'm going to pull out the ones that are anywhere near getting close to having any kind of a finish this year. And then I'm going to concentrate on those for the latter half of the year, along with my two huge full coverage, my Artisy Shades of Summer and my Haid Mini Mount Cabin Home. So what I did to do this was I took my Decision Roulette, which is on Android. If anybody has a question about where that is, it's an Android app on my cell phone. I took that, and I had already had a wheel in there with all my WIPs on it. So what I did was I duplicated that wheel and called it WIPs 2. And I decided that I would spin it each day, and I think my thing is going to stop here in like 20 seconds. So if that happens, I'll just restart. I spin it each day, and I pick the project that I'll work on the next day. And I don't know what this thing is doing. It's flashing.